Production support for this episode of Not Your Grandma's Cancer Show brought to you by students from Townley Grammar. Wait a second. This isn't your grandma's cancer show.
Not Your Grandma's Cancer Show.
Hi, I'm Tatum, and this is Not Your Grandma's Cancer Show. And today we're chatting about what it's like when your parent has cancer and you are a teenager. It's already a really complicated, often quite a turbulent time of life. So when your mum or dad gets cancer, it can have a big impact. Plus, it can be especially tough if you feel like your friends don't really understand. And that's why we have guests here today that do. So although everyone has a really different experience and maybe you'll agree with some of the things and maybe not others, that's okay, because just like having a friend group around, it's nice to be able to hear some experiences reflected back. And they're going to not only be sharing their story, but also telling us about the kinds of things that they've found helpful. And today's show is produced in partnership with students from Townley Grammar School as part of the First Give competition, and we'll find out a little bit more about that later. We have Chloe Matthews, who's 16 and her mother was diagnosed with cancer, joining us for an interview, and she's also doing double duty and will be my co-host. And later in the show we'll hear from Ed, who is 16 and who was 14 when his mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. Right now I'm delighted to have Chloe here with me. Hi, Chloe.
Hi.
It's so nice to have you on the show. And, you know, you were the one who wanted to do this project. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about the project that you're doing.
Basically, you get into groups. There's 6 of us in my group, and you pick a charity completely of your choice. But it has to be a smaller charity, so not a massive one. So the £1,000 that you win, if you win, goes directly to a charity and will actually make a huge difference. So when we were talking about what charity, everyone was really quite in agreement that we should do something with cancer because it's kind of relevant. So yeah, we picked Shine because that supported my mum and stuff. And it's important because you see lots of stuff for like children. Like when I was researching, there was a lot of like teenagers with cancer or like over 60s with cancer, but they kind of get missed out, like the 20s, 30s or 40s. So we thought it was imperative that they got like some attention as well, I guess.
Yeah. And so how old were you when your mum was diagnosed?
14, yeah, last year, 14, and it was in summer. But it was like, she didn't know about it either. So she was going to the doctor for like a year, and they were sending her away with different antibiotics because she wasn't in the age range of cancer, I guess, of her bowel cancer. And so they sent her away, and they kept sending her away. And then eventually she was like, no, something's wrong. So they sent her for a scan. And at first she didn't tell me it was cancer. She just told me that there was something wrong with her bowel. And I was like, oh, okay. And then my sister, and we were literally at dinner, and she was like, oh, I got the results from my scan. There's something wrong with my stomach. We'll be okay. I just need to go on a different medicine. And then I was like, okay. And then I went and I watched some TV, and then left my sister and my mum talking. And then she comes into the room, and then she's like, oh, Bethany just asked if it was cancer, and I thought I should probably tell you that it is. Like, she kind of said it like, so when she told me, it didn't have the same impact, I guess, because when she said the word cancer, it was like, ah. So, yeah. And then I didn't cry, I just sat there, and I was like, but you're going to be okay, right? And she was like, yeah. But it was obvious she was just saying that to kind of soften the blow, I guess. But it was crazy, because when you see it in the films, it's like, they get cancer, they lose their hair, and they either get better or they die. And it's like just 2 hours of that, but it's a lot different to when it actually happens. Like, it's not how you think it is.
Yeah. And so during that time that your mum was sick beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
when she kept going back to the doctor, were you worried about her during that time?
I wasn't really worried. It was kind of like, she would just go, I'm going to the doctor today, or she just wouldn't tell us. Like, she was going to work, she was doing like things, so I just kind of didn't care. I obviously cared, but it was like, she was just going to the doctor because she
Right.
had like an infection. So it didn't really, I don't know what the word would be. Like it didn't.
It didn't kind of land with you, like you
Yeah,
didn't
it didn't seem
necessarily-
serious. It just,
Yeah.
she was going to the GP.
Right.
And she'd only tell me like, I don't know how many times, but she wouldn't tell me every single time she would go to the doctor. She would just tell me a couple.
And how did that feel that she told you some of the time and not others?
I don't know, because she just didn't tell me, like I kind of just figured it out that she was from the doctors because she'd tell me the results, or she'd go, I'm going to the doctor so I can't pick you up from school today or something. And I was kind of in my own little bubble, so I didn't really kind of take it in. I kind of just went, okay, have fun, kind
And
of
did
thing.
that change after you knew that it was cancer?
Yeah, I think I asked some questions. I don't ask loads. I let her tell me information, and if I have questions, then I'll ask her. But I don't have many.
And how has it been talking to your friends?
Good. I think it's kind of no one really knows what to say, because it's kind of like, what do you do in that situation? Like no one really knows. I don't know either, and sometimes it's weird because I don't know what I want. Like when I'm upset, I'll just sit there in my dark room for like the whole day, not speaking to anyone. Or some days I'll just kind of want to talk to people about it. But then what do I talk about? Because it's just the same thing. So it's like I can't really talk to people because it's like the same thing, and they can't give me any advice to make it better. Like I'm stuck in this. So it's and they obviously have their own stuff going on, so I can't like bombard them with all these problems when you don't know what's going on in their life.
Yeah. And does that feel quite isolating then? Does it ever feel...
Yeah, I isolate myself quite a lot, but I don't know. It's weird because no one can help, really. They can probably help me like by listening to me, but they can't take it away.
Right.
So sometimes I just kind of sit by myself. Or sometimes I'll go into school and I'll make myself like cheer myself up and be like, no, today you're not going to be sad. Like on her chemo days, I'll be like, right, let's get through this day and stuff.
And speaking of kind of getting through a day, is your life different?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more jobs to do. And like with my exams, I told them, like, can we just split the jobs up with you guys for these next 3 weeks or something so I can just revise? And that was quite nice because it wasn't really because I have revision, but it was like I didn't have to do that many jobs for that bit because they kind of respected that I had stuff to do. But usually I'd have jobs to do, and my dad's now the like primary carer of everyone, which he wasn't before. So it was kind of, he's new to it as well, as am I. So like there's loads of jobs that I don't know existed, and it's like, oh Chloe, you haven't done this, and it's like, what is that? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Like what kinds of things?
Like cleaning the skirting, like around the floor, and then by the cooker, like when like oil splashes out of this pan, washing the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are not things that you necessarily think about before
I didn't
doing.
know, and my mum was like, why haven't you done this? And it's like, because it wasn't a thing a year ago. So I'm still kind of getting used to it. Like the washing and drying up I kind of enjoy because you just put some music on and you can have fun, but like there's some boring jobs like hoovering and stuff. So I don't like them because you can't listen to music when you're hoovering, because you're moving around.
And how is it talking to your mum about it?
It's good. She cries a lot. So does my sister. I'm not a cry person. When I cry, there's something seriously wrong. So I kind of sit there and listen, while she cries, and then I don't know. It's very hard for her, obviously. So I don't know.
And how does that feel do you feel like you need to support like your mum and your sister in those moments?
Yeah, it's frustrating because I can support them as best as I can, but I don't have the capability to kind of take it away. So like when someone would have a problem like a friendship issue, you could just say, well, don't be friends with them, or don't do this. But it's like, it's fair enough people on the outside saying, well, don't like think about it, just be positive. It's like, yeah, I can be positive like some of the time, but you've got to understand that you can't be positive all the time because
No.
it might not get better. That's the thing. Like, it could be all of her life. It could, like, stop, or she could die. Like, that's the bottom line. And I think I'm kind of coming to terms with that, which is it's scary.
But those skills that you've already learned of that, you know, while there are times that you have had like a day that you're like, okay, today I'm going to give myself a bit of space and I'm going to, you know, designate this time to be okay and maybe have a better time. The fact that you're acknowledging that you can't be like that all the time and those emotions are going to come up is, you know, part of the way that you get through it.
I used to always, like, I would never kind of show people I was upset. I'd kind of always be happy because I don't know why I thought that was probably the only way to get through it, just to be happy. But then I realised, like, that was making me worse. Like, it was making me more sad at home. Like, I'd be all happy all day and then I'd go home and I'd be like, this is my reality. It was like I was living like a double life, I guess. It was like I was at school and I was fine, and then at home it was kind of hard to cope with, like, I don't know how like a alter ego, I guess, because I was like really like trying to be there for everyone, trying to support everyone. Probably not very well, but I was trying. And then I also had my own stuff going on and I had schoolwork, and then it just too much, I guess.
Chloe, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I really appreciate it. And I'm also really delighted that you're going to stay in the studio with me because next up we're going to have Ed joining us and we'll be hearing about his story coming up in just a moment. Hi, welcome back. We're here in the studio. We have Ed joining us, and me and Chloe are both hosting this segment. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Thank you.
How was it hearing Chloe's interview?
It was good, yeah.
Yeah, could you relate to some of it?
Yeah, some of it, yeah.
Yeah. And so how did you find out that your mum had cancer?
Well, it was on the day that she found out as well, I think. I was in my living room just, you know, doing whatever I was doing, and she sat me and my brother down and just told us there, really, yeah.
And did it sink in immediately, or?
Yeah, because it was a bit of a shock, because you hear these stats like 1 in 3 people get cancer or something like that, but you always think like it's never going to be me.
Right.
Then it does affect you, and obviously your parent telling you that, you do start to worry a little bit. Yeah.
And when you worried, were you able to talk to your mum about that?
Yeah, she was quite, you know, gave me a lot of information about what was going on, so I knew what was going on at all times, so that was helpful.
Yeah. And how was your little brother?
He was okay. He's slightly more emotional, I think, than I am, but he wasn't massively, you know, like crying or hiding in his room or anything like that. Yeah, so he was okay as well.
Did your friends support you as well, or was it like just home?
Well, I didn't tell many of my friends, not because I didn't want to, because I felt I didn't need to, but some of them did know. One of my friends was quite supportive for me. But apart from that, I didn't really talk to my friends much about it. Not because I didn't want to tell them or I felt I couldn't tell them, just because I didn't really need to, personally.
And your friend that was supportive, in what way did they show you that?
Well, he would just talk to me. I told him across Facebook, because it was in the evening, and he was just saying, like, you know, I'm here for you if you want me. And yeah, he was just genuinely like kind of that stay strong kind of thing. Yeah.
What about for your brother? Do you think your brother kind of wanted to talk a bit more than you did about it?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Yeah. Did you find that between the two of you it was a subject that didn't really come up as much?
No,
or?
but not because it was like that. There wasn't an air of like we couldn't talk about it. It was just we just didn't talk about it, really.
Do you think it would have been handy to have spoken about it some more, or did you feel like that was a good way of getting through?
No, it was okay for me. I didn't feel like I needed to talk to him for support, or I don't feel like he needed to talk to me either. Because the thing is, we always knew exactly what was going on. You know, my mum said, "This is what's happening. This is what's going on. It is curable. I should be okay." I suppose we were both kind of like, you know, good about that.
Did you like that she was telling you everything, or was there some points where you were like, okay, I don't want any more information?
No, not at all, actually. I liked to know everything, because if you don't know everything, you get kind of scenarios in your head thinking this might be happening or that might be happening. But if you're told exactly what is happening, then you don't have any of that. So that was good.
Did you find that it affected, like, your life in terms of, like, schoolwork or, like, extra responsibilities, or...
I was in my 3rd year of high school, so I'd just chosen my options for GCSEs. So it was quite lucky, really. Obviously, you know, the whole situation wasn't lucky, but in that aspect, it wasn't GCSEs. It wasn't massively important. So it came at a good possible time, really. If it was going to come, I would have chosen around then, really.
So you had less pressure
Yeah.
around that time.
Do you feel like it's changed you as a person, or are you kind of the same?
Well, mostly I'm the same, but when I hear that someone's got cancer or something like that, I kind of realise what it's actually like to go through that.
Do you feel like it's made you a bit more empathetic then to other people's stories?
Yeah, because it's not just your parent. Obviously, my mum's gone to like Shine and stuff, and you hear about other people who are slightly worse off, and then you get told that and you think that's not really nice to go through.
And did anyone at your school know?
Um,
Like, did your teachers or anybody
my
know?
my one form tutor knew, because I think I was off school at one point. It was something to do with my mum, so she knew, but I don't think anyone else knew at school. But I wasn't bothered if they did know. I didn't like not want them to know, but I didn't want to tell them either. So I was fine with that, whether they knew or not. It didn't bother me.
Was there times that it like affected your homework and your schoolwork, so you just like didn't do it because you was stressed or whatever, or did you always kind of stick to all your schedules and stuff?
No, I still did homework fine, and any revision I had to do, I still did that fine, really. Yeah.
Do you worry about at the time and now, did you feel like you needed to be strong for your mum or look after your mum?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's treatment, but then after the treatment there's chemotherapy, which obviously makes you, really tired and quite ill, and that's the point where you kind of have to do stuff for your mum, because she literally, can't do it. Obviously, my dad he goes to work, so it comes on to me and my brother as a responsibility there.
So with that responsibility, I mean, one of the things is that you find out at quite a young point a little bit of a role reversal happening with your parent, and you're in the position of caring, which opens up a whole new opportunity of even how to care. So we're talking about skirting boards and oil on the walls. But was there some things that you did that you didn't expect? Or some new things that you learned about looking after somebody?
I don't think there was anything new. It was new to me at the time, but I knew eventually I would have to do these things like hoovering, dusting, and stuff like that. I knew eventually, when I got older, I would have to do those things, but it just came earlier than I expected, which was okay as well.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Ed.
Right.
Stay with us, because in the third part of the show, we're going to be chatting about some resources and some of the things that were really helpful for, when you have a bad day, what to do with it and what to do with those emotions. And that's coming up right now. So we're back with Chloe and Ed, and during our break, Chloe mentioned, actually asked a question of Ed, which I thought would be really great to share.
I just said that he seemed to handle it very well compared to me. I'm like an emotional wreck all the time. So, yeah, I thought that was crazy that it was like completely different.
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite, really. I was obviously a kid, but I wasn't crying or stressed or like locking myself in my room or anything like that.
So it just shows, really a variety of experience. And that's the thing about when something like this happens, is that you have your own personality, your own way of dealing with things. And then this comes along that, can accentuate that. But it doesn't necessarily turn you into a completely different way of handling things, just that it's, yeah. Would you say that's a fair thing to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
So in terms of resources, in terms of those really bad days, what do you do on a bad day, Chloe?
I watch Friends. Like, it's my favourite thing ever. Like, it always cheers me up. Like, at the moment, I'm on season 9. Like, I'm watching it all the way through. It's the best thing. I just sit in my room watching Friends and eating food. And then it doesn't always make me feel better. It doesn't make me feel worse either.
Okay.
And if you're crying and you can't stop crying, then you just watch Friends and it will stop you crying. Or if you feel like you want to cry but you can't, watch sad movies. That's what I do when I've been upset for ages but haven't been able to like cry or let my emotions out. I sit in my room and I watch The Fault in Our Stars or The Longest Ride. That is a really sad movie. And I just sit there and then I watch it and I cry.
So it's quite a cathartic experience just to
Yeah, to
let
let
it
all
go.
my emotions out. Otherwise I would just like shout at someone for pushing me in the corridor or something. So I have to do something.
Yeah. And what are some of the things that you like to do that kind of either distract you or make you think about it?
Well, it feels kind of wrong, but I actually don't have bad days. I'm always in a positive mood. It's not very often where I would be in a bad mood or be sad or anything like that. But I'm normally kind of thinking there's always someone that's worse off than you in the world, and it makes you like forget about what's going on with you, because you think, well, compared to them, they would kill for what I have, what situation I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way of looking at it. It's useful. I'll use that. Because I don't know. There's not many things like... There's only that riprap thing that I've seen. The website. It's the only one I've seen that's kind of... shows support. But it's not even... I don't know. Because people just say their stories. They don't say how they're coping with it, I guess. And then the people just write back, which is useful. But then it's like if you're looking for a way to kind of be happier or express your emotions. Yeah.
So the riprap website is riprap.org, and on there it has loads of different stories from different teenagers, and they've categorized the stories under sad or angry or positive, or which is quite nice because you can going into a story what the general feel of it is.
Yeah.
And Chloe, you've put your story on riprap.
I did.
Yeah. How did it feel to share?
It was weird, I guess, because anyone can read it. But then I thought, I was reading all these stories, and I thought it's not very fair if I'm reading all their stories, and then they're not reading mine back, I guess. So I just wrote it, and it was quite cool. The next morning, I was like, oh, let me just see if anyone's seen it. And then some woman, her name was Hayley, I don't remember, she wrote this whole big paragraph about how I should stay strong and stuff, and it was quite sweet because, I don't know, especially if you're feeling alone, it's nice to know that some complete stranger actually cares for you, I guess. That was quite nice.
Yeah. And they also have, I don't know if you had a look under their support in your area, but they've got like a whole listing of like national support specifically for teenagers, as well as local support places. So if things are feeling overwhelming or you feel like you can't talk to someone, then you can go through there and find out what's in your area, which I thought was really handy. Have you, either of you, met any other people before today that were in the same situation as you?
There's some people in my school that have, but I'm not close with them, so I've just heard it through people. Like when I've told them, they're like, oh yeah, so-and-so's done it. I haven't really done it, gone through it. I haven't really spoken to them about it because we're not we're not really that good friends. But it's nice to see that it's not just me out of the whole world that has, because that's what kind of feels kind of isolating at times for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know anyone personally who was affected by it, but you often hear like someone in your village, for example, gets it, and they have kids or something, and so then it's not you as well, like Chloe said,
Yeah.
but no one personally.
So it's kind of important to not feel that you're the only one in that situation.
Yeah.
Speaking of other people's stories, we're actually going to listen to one from the riprap website right now.
Mum had 4 lots of chemotherapy until they realised it was affecting her heart. All her hair had fallen out by then, so they put her on a new one for 4 lots. Then they put her on radiotherapy, then Herceptin. Just when she thought it was nearly over, she got a call. It had come back in her lungs. She found out October 2014. She didn't want to tell me, but when she was crying, I said I wouldn't leave until she told me, so she did. I was so upset, and I gave her a huge hug and tried not to cry, but it didn't work. I was so angry as well that I punched the wall. Sometimes I still get angry. Once I threw my phone at a wall and a little bit of the phone broke. My mum has to have chemo for the rest of her life, but she's coping at the moment.
So that was Alicia's story, and you can hear in her story that she has a mixture of emotions, including anger, and that can be a really complicated place to be, both for yourself and for the parent as well. So I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think parents can do to support their teenager in this position?
I would say make sure that your child knows exactly what's going on, because like I said earlier, you start thinking of scenarios in your head, like possible like really bad scenarios, but if they know, then they don't have any of that. So that's what I think parents should do.
Yeah.
I think as well, maybe check that they're okay with it, because like I know when my mum tells me stuff, sometimes that makes me kind of worry more, like additional, like I like the basics, but then she'll tell me like additional information, and then that will lead me to more questions that maybe she doesn't have the answer to. So I think check in that like your child actually wants to know all of this stuff, or if they're okay just kind of chilling in the background.
Because I was reading an article that said that, and it was specifically for teenagers, that the best thing is to have an overview of everything that's going on and then to get like a bulletin of information. So you feel like you're in the loop, but yeah, you don't necessarily have to, so you don't have to wonder if there's anything that you haven't been told. What do you think of when parents don't tell their children information?
Well, it does depend on what the child is like. As a parent, if you know your child's a complete emotional wreck, then don't give them bad news, because it won't go down well. Then if that person is a kind of emotional wreck, maybe they're thinking of the worst possible situation. So perhaps you could tell them what is going on, but try and make it sound slightly positive for them.
So kind of skewing the information, tailoring it, but also acknowledging that if your child is actually really worried, it might be because they don't have enough information.
Yeah.
My mum has bowel cancer and then secondary cervical cancer. And she didn't tell me about the cervical cancer because she didn't want to worry me, because she just thought, oh, it's cancer. It's the same wherever it is. But then I didn't find out like she was just talking about it like she had told me. And I was like, oh, you never told me. And then she was like, well, I didn't really think it mattered that much. And I was like, yeah, it does, because it's like another step. Like, I think it depends on what the information is. Like, if it's just information like, I'm going for my, like, she goes on Tuesdays for chemo consultations and then has chemo on Friday. Like, I don't need to know that because that's like every day shoot, like every other week. But if it's like massive information like that, then I really like want to know that, because now that leaves me with questions like, well, she didn't tell me that. Maybe she hasn't told me this or that or something like that.
Yeah, so generally kind of definitely wanting to know the big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not all the smaller, more everyday things, but kind of, a news bulletin. And so we've come to the end of the show. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I know that it can be challenging sometimes to talk about this, and actually even for listening, especially because something today might have, really hit home or might have not. So it was actually one of Chloe's friends that said what she does is a 5-minute decompression. So after thinking even about other people's stories, and you probably find this after watching Fault in Your Stars, is that, it's good to kind of acknowledge the emotions that do come up. And if you find yourself a bit later in the day, sometimes getting a bit, irrationally angry or upset at something, it might just be that you have still some residual feelings. So we're totally acknowledging at the end of this to have a little bit of space. If you're at home after listening to this, or you're out and about, just giving yourself a little bit of time. It doesn't have to be that long, just to acknowledge how you feel. And maybe do something nice for yourself. I mean, I think that's always a good idea anyway. But if you are feeling a bit emotional, finding a space, whether it's been watching Friends or doing something else.
You should do that.
And also check out the riprap website, and we'll have some more resources in our show notes. Thank you so much for listening to us today, and including thank yous. Thank you to the wonderful students from Townley Grammar, who all helped with research and production on the show today. Thank you to Lauren Costi for our music, and Lizzie Doe for designing our logo. Thank you to Radio Facilities, who records our show, and special thanks to riprap for letting us share their stories on our episode today. And this show is produced by Shine Cancer Support. You can find Shine Cancer Support on the web, shinecancersupport.org. Till next time, see you later.